Have you ever studied for hours, only to forget almost everything the next day? Have you ever looked at others and wondered why learning seems so effortless for them, while your mind feels slow, tired, and overwhelmed? If so, you are not alone. Millions of people struggle silently with memory, focus, and self-doubt every single day. Students grow anxious before exams, professionals feel buried under a mountain of information, and many slowly begin to believe something painful. Maybe I am just not smart enough. But the truth is strikingly different. Your brain is not broken, it was simply never trained the right way. Most people spend years trying to force information into their minds without understanding how memory actually functions. They rely on mechanical repetition, feel exhausted, and lose confidence when the knowledge fades. Memory is not merely a talent, it is a method. The human brain is incredibly powerful, and neuroscientists have discovered that it can grow, adapt, and strengthen throughout your entire life. This means you can sharpen your focus, improve your retention, and learn faster than you ever imagined. In this journey with Learn English by Stories, you will discover 7 advanced memory techniques used by top learners and high performers worldwide. These methods will help you absorb information more deeply, remember it longer, and rebuild trust in your own mind. Once you understand how your brain truly works, everything begins to change. Technique 1. The emotional connection method. The first technique is something most people completely ignore, even though it dictates how the brain remembers almost everything. Emotion strengthens memory. Think about your own life. You might forget what you ate 2 weeks ago, but you vividly remember embarrassing moments from years ago. You remember heartbreaks, exciting victories, and difficult experiences with surprising clarity because the brain prioritizes emotional information. Emotion sends a powerful signal to the mind. This matters. Do not forget this. This is why emotionally charged experiences outlast boring information repeated mechanically. The problem is that most people study in an emotionally disconnected way. They stare at lifeless pages, repeat robotic sentences, and force themselves to read even when their brain feels numb. Your brain was never designed to remember meaningless data for long. The human mind remembers what feels alive, visual, and connected to real experience. This is why storytelling is one of the most powerful learning tools in history. Stories create emotion, emotion creates attention, and attention strengthens memory. Instead of treating learning like a punishment, start connecting emotionally to the information. If you are studying history, do not just memorize dates. Imagine the fear, the struggle, and the atmosphere of that era. If you are learning a language, connect new words to personal memories or people you care about. The moment information becomes emotionally real, your brain stores it differently. Memory champions understand this deeply. They don't just memorize, they create strange, funny, or dramatic mental images. If you want to remember the word apple, do not just repeat it 10 times. Imagine a giant glowing apple exploding with color. Imagine its scent and the weight of it in your hands. The more vivid the image, the stronger the memory. Technique 2. The Memory Palace. The second technique is one of the most fascinating systems ever created, the Memory Palace. For thousands of years, the greatest thinkers used this method to recall enormous amounts of information without writing a single word. Ancient Greek and Roman orators used it to memorize long speeches, and modern neuroscience now confirms why it works so well. The human brain is naturally excellent at remembering locations. You may forget random facts, but you rarely forget the layout of your home or a road you travel often. Spatial memory is deeply connected to survival. Your brain was designed to remember environments. The Memory Palace technique leverages this natural ability. To use it, choose a place you know well, your house, your classroom, or your neighborhood. Then mentally place information in specific locations within that space. Imagine entering your living room and seeing a giant burning book on the sofa to represent your first idea. Imagine your kitchen flooded with floating numbers for the second concept. By doing this, your mind is no longer struggling with dry, abstract data. Instead, it is traveling through a familiar location filled with vivid experiences. The stranger or more exaggerated the image, the more likely you are to remember it. This is how memory athletes recall hundreds of names and facts with shocking accuracy. This technique also reveals the hidden power of imagination. Many people stop using their imagination as they grow older, replacing creativity with stress and passive consumption. The memory palace forces your brain to become active. Instead of just reading words, you are building mental worlds, creating stronger neural connections through active visualization. Technique 3, spaced repetition. The third technique can completely transform how you retain information. It is called spaced repetition. While it sounds simple, most learners fail because they work against the brain's natural rhythm. They cram everything into one exhausting session, only for the information to vanish a few days later, leading to frustration and self-doubt. The brain is not designed to hold information permanently from a single exposure. Memory naturally fades unless it is reinforced. This is the forgetting curve, discovered by psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus. Your brain is efficient. It deletes what it perceives as unimportant. To keep knowledge, you must signal that it matters. Spaced repetition works by reviewing information at specific intervals. Tomorrow, then in a few days, then a week later, then a month later. Each time you revisit the material, your brain recognizes it as meaningful. With every review, the neural connections become deeper and more stable. This technique teaches a vital lesson. Growth is built through consistency, not just intensity. Many people wait for the perfect moment of motivation and try to do everything at once, only to burn out. But the brain responds to repetition, not chaos. One focused hour every day builds a stronger mind than 10 exhausted hours once a month. Real memory is built in layers, slowly, quietly, and consistently. Technique 4, active recall. The fourth technique is perhaps the most powerful, yet it is the one most people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. It is called active recall. Most students follow a pattern of passive review, rereading notes, highlighting textbooks, or rewatching lessons. This creates a fluency illusion. You recognize the information, but recognition is not the same as recall. Real memory is tested when there is nothing in front of you, when you are forced to pull information out of your mind without help. Instead of passively reviewing, you must challenge your brain. Close the book, ask yourself questions, explain the concept in your own words. Teach it out loud to an imaginary audience. At first, this feels difficult and frustrating. You might feel like you know less than you thought. But difficulty is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of growth. Just as muscles grow from resistance during exercise, your memory strengthens when your brain struggles to retrieve information. That friction is what turns weak knowledge into long-lasting memory. Modern life has trained us to avoid mental effort, but real learning does not happen in passive comfort. Teaching others is one of the strongest forms of active recall because it forces you to organize information clearly. It exposes gaps in your understanding and builds genuine confidence. You don't need to be a genius to use this. You only need the willingness to be uncomfortable for a few moments. Technique 5, interleaving. The fifth technique, interleaving, challenges the common habit of blocking, focusing on a single topic for hours. Most people study math for 3 hours, then science for 3. While this feels organized, research suggests the brain learns better when it is forced to adapt. Interleaving involves mixing different subjects or types of problems within a single session. Instead of repeating the same type of question until you're on autopilot, you switch between different challenges. This prevents the brain from becoming mechanical and forces it to stay alert and analytical. When you mix subjects, your brain must identify differences and recognize patterns in new ways. For example, instead of only practicing reading in a new language, combine reading, listening, and speaking in one session. This creates a more flexible and responsive understanding. Variety keeps the brain engaged. When learning becomes predictable, attention weakens and memory becomes fragile. Interleaving brings back mental flexibility, training you to move smoothly between different types of thinking. In a rapidly changing world, the ability to adapt and shift perspectives is a true superpower. Technique 6. Sleep and memory consolidation. The sixth technique involves no studying at all. In fact, it requires the opposite, sleep. In a culture that glorifies the hustle, sleep is often treated as an obstacle. Students pull all-nighters and workers sacrifice rest, unaware that they are sabotaging their own brains. Your brain does not stop working when you sleep. During deep sleep, it sorts through the day's information, strengthening what matters, and organizing memories for long-term storage. Sleep is the moment learning becomes permanent. Without it, your memory becomes unstable and your focus turns fragile. Studying while exhausted is like trying to fill a container full of holes. No matter how much effort you put in, the information leaks out. Lack of sleep also increases anxiety and reduces motivation, making everything feel heavier than it is. Chronic exhaustion can make you believe you aren't intelligent, when the reality is simply that your brain hasn't been given time to recover. Rest is not a sign of weakness, it is biological maintenance. High performers protect their sleep because they know a well-rested brain performs better under pressure. If you want to improve your memory, sometimes the solution is not to study more, but to recover better. A rested mind transforms learning into something effortless and powerful. Technique 7. The identity shift. The final technique is the most profound because it deals with your identity. Long before your brain remembers information, it listens to what you believe about yourself. Many people carry silent, self-defeating beliefs. I have a terrible memory, or I am a slow learner. Over time, these thoughts become your identity, and that identity dictates your behavior. If you believe you are mentally weak, you approach learning with fear. You panic when things get difficult, and you quit early. You begin acting like the version of yourself you believe you are. But the opposite is also true. When you see yourself as someone capable of growth, your relationship with difficulty changes. Neuroscience supports this through neuroplasticity, the fact that your brain remains adaptable throughout your life. You are not locked into your current level of intelligence. You are constantly changing based on what you practice and believe. To change your ability, you must change your internal narrative. Start telling yourself, my brain is improving. I am becoming more focused. I learn faster with practice. Diabetes. These are not just motivational phrases, they are directions that guide your behavior. Intelligence is not about knowing everything, it is about staying willing to learn. A teachable mind keeps growing, while a defeated mind stops before progress can even begin. The most dangerous thing is not forgetting information. It is believing that improvement is impossible. The moment you start believing in your capacity to grow, everything becomes possible. Conclusion. If you forget things easily or feel frustrated by your progress, understand this. Your brain is not your enemy. It is simply waiting to be trained. Memory is a skill, much like physical strength or communication. It grows through patience, strategy, and consistency. The 7 techniques you've learned here, emotional connection, the memory palace, spaced repetition, active recall, interleaving, sleep, and the identity shift are not shortcuts. They are systems. But knowledge alone will not change your life. Application will. Start small. Choose one technique and practice it daily. Real growth is slow, but it is permanent. A powerful mind is built through discipline and the decision to keep going even when it feels difficult. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Your brain is capable of far more than you currently believe. Keep learning, keep improving, and keep moving forward with Learn English by Stories. A trained mind does not just remember better, it lives better.